Are you tired of going to Liberty events only to meet higher fees and diminishing attendance? Is it troubling that your banners have to be approved by the Libertarian Central Planners? Are you tired of seeing your friends physically removed because they said something edgy? Hey, that's none of my business. Then you should check out the Jackalope Freedom Festival non-event at Baca Meadows in the cooler part of northern Arizona. Meet Liberty activists, listen to talks, have a beer with Hoppy, score some free Freedom Fiends merchandise, camp under the stars, and fight the state with delicious Navajo tacos. And the best part is that there's no fees or libertarian general scrutinizers. Check out JackalopefreedomFestival.com for more information and directions. Runs from August 1st through 8th. That's JackalopefreedomFestival.com.
I mean, you could see it even with the so-called conspiracy theories that got proven to be true, that most people just shrug them off and go, oh, that was then, not now.
That would never happen again.
Yeah.
MK Ultra, Operation Paperclip, Tonkin Gulf. No, that could never happen today.
Yeah, exactly. So
it is slavery. It's just a different name. A lot of people don't realize what it is. And when we bring these ideas to light and make people realize, that this government force is the problem.
And to me, it's like I say, imagine you're an abolitionist in the 19th century, and these slave masters are giving you the same exact argument. Who's going to pick the cotton?
Hey, Seeds of Liberty. Read the show's description, please. Fervently complete the course, report him to the infantry. Finish him, deconstruct the fallacy. Seasonal production means it seems to spawn a tragedy. Peep the action, please. A fraction of the allegory. Corollary cadences, complaining on a sadder story. Menial, recently reading into the thesis here. Mirroring the people who completely fail to see it though. Seeing is believing, yes, the reason is appealing most. Reading enemies is just enables you to see it too. Menial, recently reading into the thesis here. Mirroring the people.
hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seeds of Liberty podcast. This is episode 68. As always, the Seeds of Liberty podcast is covered by the BIPCOT No Government License. This allows reuse by anybody except governments and the agents thereof. You can find out more information about this at bipcot.org. So, we are now on week 2 of our Fiend Phone experiment. Hopefully it goes even smoother than last week, because we are still down Danilo, which is fine, because, well, he probably couldn't use Fiend Phone anyway, him and his damn Macs. But we are joined this week by one of the co-hosts of the RadicaLogic Podcast, our friend Merrick VanLandingham. Hey, Merrick, how you doing, man?
Hello. Doing great, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And we also have a returning guest, one of our friends, Mr. Shane Buell. Hey, Shane. How's it going, man?
Hey, everybody. Going good.
All right. And
it's good to have you guys back on.
And there's Dave.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. This is.
Then there's Dave. I mean, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, Dave's here.
Dave's
yeah,
man.
No, unfortunately he is, but we'll make do anyway.
We'll make do.
Anyway,
I can't get away from him. When I'm not on his show, he's on mine. So.
Well, that's your own fault, man. You invited him. I can't control. Like this, I can't control. This was technically his project, so I kind of have to keep him around. But listen, you don't have to invite him on your show.
Hey, leave Dave alone.
Thanks, Shane. I got somebody on my side here.
Dave knows.
We had fun, Dave.
Dave knows I mean.
Yeah, we did have fun. I don't know when that show's going to come out, but it was a fun show.
Yeah, it'll come out as soon as I get around to the editing, which unfortunately over the last couple of days I haven't been able to do. But probably tomorrow I'll have it done.
Well, that's all right. You can take your time. I think we're running out of space this month. There were some glitches with the recording, so I'm going to have to rearrange some stuff to fit some stuff on the RSS feed. But anyway, so this week, I guess we're just going to talk about a menagerie of things and see where it goes. For starters, we have, right after we finished recording last week, actually I think within like half an hour of us finishing recording our show last week with Diana Kyler, we got the news about the shootings in Dallas, which just was kind of interesting considering we had been spending the whole night talking about cops and the fact that they had been killing people left and right. And sure, as soon as we got up the air, hey, a whole bunch of them are dead. So I'm sure we could talk about that. And I know Shane had an interesting line of thought that we were discussing before the show about Hillary and the fact that, as usual, she may be running cover or having cover run for her about all these news stories and stuff like that. Because
the timing just seems too coincidental.
Yeah, it does always seem to work out like that, right? When when people, I mean, there's that meme that goes around, something along the lines of whatever the major story is at the time, look for what they're not telling you type of deal. And
exactly.
Sure, it could be coincidence, but when it happens every time one of these people are in trouble in some sorts, and then all of a sudden these major events happen, it does.
And the entire eye of the media just shifts.
Yeah, it does. Oh, it does seem kind of odd. I'm not gonna go completely tinfoil hat and say that it's definitely somebody controlling these situations.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. I typically will trend away from the tinfoil hattery and the conspiracy theory. But I would go back to, even though it's not exactly what he was talking about, even Bastiat talked about there's what is seen and what is unseen, or that which is seen and that which is not seen. And I think that a lot of times we get steered so easily away in this herd mentality of only seeing what is seen and ignoring what is not seen. And you have to say, well, is some of that probably, maybe propaganda or maybe intentional? Probably so, yes.
Yeah, and
I don't want to sound like a kook, but that's what I think. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, I was just going to interject that Rahm Emanuel once said, "Don't let a crisis go to waste." And they're just playing this the best way they can.
Oh, they're societal leeches. That's what politicians are, man. They prey on the fears and the wants, so to say, of the people that they claim to represent, and that's all they do.
Right. It does seem like perfect timing, though.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. It could just be coincidence, and yeah, I mean, Emmanuel said that, but he's not actually the first. That's a line that's gone on for. It gets attributed to him all the time, but there's instances of people saying almost that verbatim throughout history, because it's just been it's a state, just like technically people point to Cloward-Piven with their stuff.
Exactly.
And what they did, but there was people doing that type of thing well before them. They just didn't have a name for it, or it wasn't as organized. But the people were using these tactics. You can go.
Sun Tzu talked about it in The Art of War.
Oh, sure, exactly. Exactly. It's a perfect example. So this isn't new. This is what the people in power, whatever shape that power takes, have used throughout history to keep the masses distracted, because whether it's the actual bread and circuses, or whether it's contrived stories, or whether it's taking advantage of an actual story, they will do whatever they possibly can to keep the eyes off of them, because just like the great and powerful Oz, they don't want anybody peeking behind the curtain and seeing exactly what's going on. So
yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the Cloward-Piven strategy. Most people don't even know what that is.
Oh yeah, sorry, burying the lead. Why don't you want to give us for anybody who doesn't know?
It was leading me off into another train of thought that even Noam Chomsky in Rules for Radicals talks about that in depth. Now, I don't ascribe to any of those things, but I'm somewhat familiar with them. But when you talk about Cloward-Piven, then you may have to, Jeremy, step in and help me kind of rekindle where it's coming from in my brain. But essentially, I believe the idea is to just divide everybody down and separate them out, to essentially divide everything down to pit the groups against each other and then pull them apart one by one.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what's going on.
Pretty oversimplified, but just for the sake of radio, that's effectively what you're looking at, and it's what Noam Chomsky expanded on in Rules for Radicals about doing the same thing.
You mean Alinsky? Saul Alinsky?
Oh, I mean, why do I keep saying Chomsky?
Well, he's a dirty commie too, but
yeah, damn commies, they all smell alike. Sorry about that. My mind is going in about 3 directions, and if you guys know me, you know how bad I am with names. So
it's E on the end of the name.
The Alinsky.
Yeah, well,
you called me You called me Dylan the first time you met me. No.
That's you know what you were saying though is that, you know, it's all about dividing, and it's all about manipulating the situation. I mean, I think the initial, it was the paper they wrote, basically, right? And it was essentially the original plan back then was to overload the welfare system to create a crisis, and their goal was to get that guaranteed income for everybody. So
to divide everybody up and break the system from the top down, so they could rebuild some kind of socialist utopia.
Exactly. So that was their end goal, and what they used were these techniques to keep everybody off balance, at each other's throats, not paying attention to the real problem. And again, like I said, I mean, people point to this, and the ones that do know what it is say, oh, Cloward-Piven. But again, it's been going on for centuries and longer than that.
Yes, divide, distract, and conquer. That's pretty much. The politicians, they divide you, and then they distract you, and then they rob you blind. And then while you're distracted and divided, that you're not united enough to stop them from robbing you.
That also sounds like the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. Yeah.
Well, now you're
with the superstition of authority.
A lot of people, because there's a lot of folks who don't get that one either. But I mean, to stick with that for a second, I think with the Cloward-Piven, the only thing that differentiated them from Alinsky and any of those other tactics is that they wanted to use, like you said, Jeremy, the welfare system to basically collapse it through just this insane redistribution until there was nothing left and it was unsustainable. But it's really the same thing that's been going on forever.
Yeah, but I mean, with that instance in particular, they were extremely successful, because look what happened. I mean, I think that was written 65, 66, somewhere in that neighborhood.
It was in the 60s, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, I want to say 66, but I'm not sure about that.
Can we talk about why UBI won't work if that's their end goal?
What's UBI?
What is that?
Universal basic income. It's what they want.
Yeah. Well, we can get to that in a second. I was just going to say that they have been successful, because look what's happened. You know, what is it? 50 years later. Actually, almost exactly. If I'm right about being 66, you're talking 50 years later. The system hasn't been crashed yet, but it is close to bursting. You know, there's only so many fingers that could be stuck on the dam before the entire thing comes down. And they have been successful in getting the people on the so-called right, for the most part, to despise the people who use this system in general, regardless of whether they have a legitimate reason for needing some kind of help or something like that. But the divide and conquer has absolutely worked in that capacity, because that's people. There's this deep-seated hatred now on either side, because you know, since then. Well, I mean, even before then, but even more so since then, those on the left, the typical low information voters on the left, have had it pounded into their head that the Republicans hate people like you, and they're evil, and they would just want to take everybody's money, and
they want old people to die.
Exactly. And the people on the low information people on the right have been convinced and conditioned that those on the left just want to take. They just want everything given to them. They don't care anything about working for what they've done. You know, basically the stereotypical caricature of the crazy socialist. That's what these people have been conditioned to believe everybody on the left is like, and they go at each other, and the entire time those in power have just been sitting back laughing because it has worked. And I've said it before that, you know, one of the big poo-poos that people like to give for any idea about a conspiracy theory is that, things like this couldn't happen, or it would have happened by now. And I say, no. Just look at history. Right. They've learned that those in power have learned from others who have been in power what not to do. Hitler rose to power in a hurry and then imploded by doing some crazy shit. But
we could speak to any number of despotic leaders throughout history.
Oh yeah,
I mean, we could look at the Jacobin Revolution and say, oh well, all right, yeah, who saw that coming? Pick one.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is they've, the leaders that came, the leaders, I can't believe I just used that word, the quote unquote rulers afterwards have learned from that. And they said, okay, now we have to do it a little slower. And it's the frog in the boiling pot, where it's been a slow game for 50, 60, 70, even 100 plus years in some instances with the progressives, and they just learn they learn from everybody else. Okay, we don't press too hard. We just throw some ideas out there every once in a while and see what sticks. See how it gauge people. Whenever people get upset about, they're threatening to do all these crazy laws, or they're going to pass this regulation or that regulation. Half the time, they have no intention of actually getting it passed. It's just a feeler. They just throw it out there to gauge the citizenry's reaction. And if enough people don't pay attention, okay, we'll just slide it through. If they do and they get up all in arms, they pretend to put up a fight and then just go, oh, okay, well, the system worked for you guys. You got what you wanted. We're not going to do this thing. And then it just sits on the back burner until the next time.
Democracy at work.
Then 4 months later, he gets shoved in the back of some bill.
Exactly.
Named the Freedom Bill. And it's like, well, hell, you didn't want to vote on the Freedom Bill? What's wrong with you, bud? You're going to lose votes.
You against freedom? Well, if I can grab the floor for just a second. I had a good conversation with our mutual friend, Mr. Manny Edwards, Esquire, yesterday about this very thing. And in the conversation, it kind of hit me like a clue bat upside the head. They're talking about, the contention that's in the air right now. It's so thick you can cut it with a knife. And that's why I think it's kind of striking that, Jeremy, you brought up this whole thing about the Cloward-Piven. It's because in the late 60s, which was, shortly after that paper came out, the world was really on the edge. It was on a precipice of chaos, mainly because of the Vietnam War, but that was just a kind of an extension of this whole Red Scare and communism and, all of those things, the Soviet Union, and the world was primed to be ignited. And you saw that look at Kent State University, look at the peace protesters who were violently, beat by National Guard troops and police and this and that. And it was just really kind of a crazy time. And here we are 50 years later, and I was pointing out that I see a lot of the same corollaries, that we have been divided and told that I have to hate this group over here because A, they're brown people, they live somewhere else, B, and C, they all want to kill us, and D, they chant death to America, and E, we have to build a wall because they're trying to come here and they're going to infiltrate us, and if we don't go there and take care of them first, then they're going to come to our soil. And then you look at what you were just talking about, stuff going on in France and things going on in Dallas and this thing with the cops, and then cops are killing people left and right, 1,000 to 1,500 a year. I see a lot of those corollaries. And then on top of that, what's coming on later in the year, the changes with China and the yuan and with their currency becoming an international reserve currency, and then the election, to where you're going to get one of two really horrible people and some bad things are going to happen. And so I'm watching this little conflagration starting, and once I kind of tied all those little dots together, I said, yeah, you know what, you're right. There probably will be something big that could happen. And as you said a minute ago, everybody says, well, it'll never happen these days, it could never happen here. And I always hate to make all these war references, but that's what they said in Serbia in 1914. And it took 2 bullets from Gavrilo Princip, to take care of Ferdinand and his wife, that started a war that has been raging for over 100 years. It really never has ended. We're still dealing with it. Everything that we talk about today, politically, international relations, the war on terror, all those things really started there and have never ended. So, just a thought.
Yeah, it sounds like a rather in-depth analysis.
Sorry about that.
No, please don't.
No, you're right on.
Don't ever apologize. No, I was going to echo Shane. I think you're absolutely right. It really is. I mean, the whole idea. What was it? There was a couple of people, a couple of big names, and I'm going to draw a blank right now. But when the the so-called Treaty of Versailles was signed, and there was that armistice. When Armistice Day was created.
Germany got screwed.
Oh yeah, but aside from that, there was a couple of people, and I can't remember who it was now, but who said that this isn't an armistice. This isn't like a peace thing. This is just a waiting game. Like that's all it is. Like
the beginning of the Cold War.
Yeah, like they fully expected that it was going to start up again. Like there was just going to be, pretend peace for 10, 20 years, and then as soon as that's done, all bets are off, and we're going to be right back where we started again.
Whoever lights the next match is going to rekindle the flame. Even Churchill wrote about that. He knew that.
Yeah, he was one of them. There you go. I knew.
I could look it up. I don't have anything in front of me, and I'm not going to. But yeah, I mean, it was obvious to everyone at the time.
Yeah, it was just like especially in the U.S. getting into the war had to be sold to people. The whole idea of the armistice had to be sold to people too, because it's you convince the masses, oh, this is what we're doing, and everybody's so shell shocked because of what's just happened to them that they're looking for any type of positive note. So when they're told that this is what's going to happen, most people just go okay, and they believe it. Meanwhile, people like Churchill and the rest of the leaders knew full well that it was going to start back up again, and it was just a matter of time. Yeah, and exactly like you said, it's been nonstop since then.
Yeah,
and and
I hope that I'm wrong, because I would like to. And I'm not going to take over your show.
Yeah, it has. It's been nonstop war since the Federal Reserve became
that was
into
1913.
Yeah, that was only a year before the Ferdinand got shot.
Yeah, which didn't have anything to do with what was going on in Serbia, but it certainly didn't help. Feel free to make the case if you want.
No,
I don't think it did.
No, I'm not.
There's pointing evidence to. Oh yeah, there's pointing evidence to kind of suggest that the Fed may have financed like both sides of almost every war.
Oh, I think that's true.
Its creation.
Yeah, I don't know that it had anything to do with the Black Hand that Princip was a member of that ended up starting all of that. I mean, that stuff had been laid. Those chess pieces had been laid long before the bullets actually hit.
Oh no, I know, and I sighed just automatically. I wasn't about to go down that rabbit hole now.
Right.
But like Dave,
and I don't want to.
Oh yeah, but like Dave said, that's the reason I sighed automatically, because I have come across enough questionable stuff that does led credence to the idea that people involved in the Fed and that whole thing were also involved in everything else before then, and all that stuff leading up to it.
Well, that could be. I just typically want to look at sources first.
Of course.
And I mean, I go off of an old saying, and I forget who said it. I know it somewhere, but never ascribe to malice that which can be explained by incompetence. So I never want to run down the rabbit hole first, other than saying, okay, I'm going to assume that this was just gross incompetence because, well, let's face it, people are stupid. But then, slowly we can see that, no, there was all of these other factors at work and things that we didn't know about and stuff like that. And then I can say, well, yeah, maybe there is a there.
Oh, sure.
But I don't start with that assumption.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I agree with you, because normally, for the most part these days, I usually try to do the same, because I take the same line with most things, that to me, it doesn't even often matter if it can be proven that there is more to the story, because the results are what matter to me. What I have to deal with in front of me now is what matters to me. So, the line I always use is, whether by design or happenstance, I don't really care. Because I still have to deal with the results.
Exactly.
I have to live. I have to be part of living with the results of it. So I don't care who did it. I don't care why they did it necessarily. I don't care how it happened. All I know is what happened, and what do we, how do we press forward from here? How do we, there's only so many things in history you can point to that may help convince somebody that the government really is a bad idea. But for the most part, I mean, you could see it even with the so-called conspiracy theories that got proven to be true, that most people just shrug them off and go, oh, that was then, not now.
That would never happen again.
Yeah.
The MK Ultra, you know, Operation Paperclip, Tonkin Gulf. No, that could never happen today.
Yeah, exactly. So
Obama is the president now. That doesn't happen now. The same people that were in charge in the 60s, there's no way they could be in charge now. Like, the people are so, they're just, they just, it blows my mind how they are not more inquisitive into the ones who claim to rule them.
It doesn't surprise
What do you think about
me
that,
at
Shane?
all. Yeah, well, Shane, you talk for a minute, and I feel like I'm taking over here. That's what I do, by the way, so I'm going to shut up.
Okay, I guess going back, 100 years to World War I, and you were talking about both sides being funded by, perhaps the Federal Reserve, but I've heard a lot of stories about the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, funding both countries in a war,
that's
both sides in a
Federal
war.
Reserve.
Well, yeah, the world banks, the IMF and the World Bank, and even our Federal Reserve, probably.
well, no,
But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say all the central banks are all that's who it is. It's the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. That's who. It's always, and that goes way back beyond the Federal Reserve. That goes back.
Oh yeah, I mean, at least 100 years, many hundreds.
Yeah, no. When did Dave? You're usually good with this. Who was it? Was it Mayer Rothschild? Was he the first one?
Right.
Right. It was Mayer.
Well, I mean, he wasn't the first one, but he's kind of the one that was like, it's like Goldman. Like, think about your families out there, your big strong families. Like Mayer Rothschild was the first one that was like, that really like just sewed it up and really put them in like the number one family on the planet when Napoleon lost the war. He basically owned France and England at the end of that whole thing. He owned them.
Okay. Yeah. That's
actually not conspiracy.
And then he went in and told the leaders, the new leaders. He said, "Hey, I own you. I'll let you do your government thing, but I print and run the money here." And that's kind of how they started operating ever since Napoleon. So you can actually kind of see the way the world has operated since Napoleon's empire, which that was a huge vacuum, has kind of transpired, and we kind of have been in like a post-Napoleonic timeline, so to say, with the Rothschild family being so dominant over banking in the world, really.
Yeah, I think his father's name was Amschel Mayer Rothschild, and then his son's name was Mayer Rothschild. And the father, I guess, started the goldsmithing business, and you know how the goldsmiths would use, fractional reserve banking to get ahead. And he taught that to his son, and he just happened to be in the right place at the right time to take advantage of the Napoleon situation, where he had advanced knowledge of the stock market and was able to get there and manipulate the stock market with the amount of reserves that he was able to throw around.
It was like gray inside trading,
Oh, it was definitely.
It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was like insider or outsider trading or whatever, but it was definitely like on the very schemy and plotty. Like, I mean, they bought it like suckers. Like, when you have an entire centralized system that's set up like that can be bought like that, I mean, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Well, and then people wonder about the wars so much that, and I hate to keep going back to this First World War thing, but it really is kind of the linchpin of what started a lot of this. You look at the banking system in the United States and how much it benefited from the First World War, not only from Europe being involved in it, but also from the United States getting involved in it, which I think wasn't until...
I think Britain just recently paid back their debt.
Oh, just recently, within a few years ago, but they were expending munitions much faster than they could make them, so we could not only sell them the munitions that they needed to what was called, I guess, the Allied powers. They had a different name for it then, and I can't think of what it is, but they didn't have the money to pay for it, so we would loan them the money to buy our munitions that they would have to pay back at a later date. It was all done through that fractional reserve banking system, and it's just
amazing. And there was Jeep engines and Nazi cars and
sure, on both sides. Yeah, absolutely.
Bush's jet fuel and Nazi planes, and there's that whole thing has just been a huge welfare warfare, state expansion, power expansion. The Federal Reserve has kind of been a plague on humanity. It is Leviathan. I don't think the United States government is the issue, really, because it's so incompetent.
It's a symptom.
Yeah,
the Fed is just so bad. Like, it owns and runs everything.
Well,
if you don't think so, they own the banks. The banks have to get money from the Fed. If they're using their money, then they essentially own them. So, and then the banks own your house, unless you've got a house paid off and you have a clear deed to it. So, and then if the bank owns 1% of your house, then that means that the Rothschilds essentially own 1% of your house.
Yeah.
It's just
this may be a little bit of Greek to I don't know who the audience, who all of your audience is, but if anybody's wondering,
I think the three of them can understand.
Murray Rothbard's "What Has Government Done to Our Money?"
Oh, that's a good one. That was actually my start. That was my first.
Really?
That was my first. That was my first. Well, that was my first. That was my first introduction to Rothbard. I just managed to. I was looking through. What was it? One of those book. It wasn't an Audible book. No. It was one of those services that does free. It offers free audiobooks or downloadable books.
Like
Mises
Audible
or
it wasn't Mises. But this was way before I found Mises. It's just like it's not Audible, but it's something
Cato?
no. It has nothing to do with libertarianism or anarchism or anything like that. This is just it's just some service, and that just happened to be on there. And I said, oh, okay, I'll read that. And I was like, whoa, it totally
pretty eye opening.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, I had no idea about any of this. So yeah, that's definitely a good one to start with. Actually,
it really is like stepping out of the cave the first time, huh? Like the first time you read Rothbard, you're like, wow.
Yeah,
and then but you have to follow that up with The Creature from Jekyll Island by
G. Edward Griffin.
G. Edward Griffin.
Yes. Yeah, that one. Well, that one you need to be ready for not only some eye-opening stuff, but one heck of a in-depth ride, because he packs a lot of information in those. I mean, I think the book itself was like 600 pages.
It's dense,
but
yeah.
a good, and it's heavily footnoted too. So there is a lot of cross-referencing and things that you can do if you want to take the time. I mean, I got through not even a tenth of the footnotes. Like, I just wanted to check a bunch of things just to see where he was getting this information from, and there's just so much. it would take forever to do the research to find the research that he did. But there's definitely a lot of stuff. And again, like you said before, Merrick, when it comes to the things with Napoleon and Mayer Rothschild all the way back then, like stuff like this, stuff like Griffin was talking about, not conspiracy. This is all like stuff that has now been proven to be, accurate portrayals of history, and people still just shrug it off and go, that was then, this is now.
What can we do? Even if you're right, what can we do?
Well, yeah, but the other thing, Merrick, you had said, it was just the fact that it's all been built off of that, essentially. Like, it's, that was a linchpin for at least what's gone on for the large part of the past almost couple of centuries now, because things kind of died down, other than the war of northern aggression here, but everything kind of died down after the the so-called American Revolution and the French Revolution. There wasn't that much going on the worldwide scale, other than people being pissed at the new United States. But yeah, ever since then, the modern warfare and everything, it's just been it all starts.
Well, there's been civil wars and central bank getting across since the Federal Reserve came about as well. Like that
there was central banking.
That's what World War I and World War II was about.
Well, yeah, but there was central banking before that too. But again, that's just, it all kind of led up to that point. And whoever it was who was actually behind the starting of the war, having the plan set up to have Ferdinand taken out in the first place, which they were almost sure was going to spark the whole thing off, was going to spark something off. No matter who it was, since then it's just been a whirlwind of shit. And
if they killed Trump, do you think it would kind of spark a war?
No. Who killed him? If he was just killed on U.S. soil by some crazy person, no. if the story was set that it was somebody who came in from one of the countries we're supposed to hate, for East Asia, Eurasia, whoever it is we're supposed to hate right now, if it was somebody from there, then yes. But I think the only thing that would spark a war here is going to be the continued battles between the police and the protesters of different sorts.
Police almost always do start civil wars. I always forget that. Because the very top of the government, they have one idea that they want out, and it's like, have you ever tried to tell someone, hey, whisper this into their ear and then pass it down? Well, the same thing happens in top-down hierarchies, and the cops, they make mistakes, and it reflects the entire institution.
Sure. And I was thinking about this earlier today in another conversation that people are, I understand all of the contention with police right now with the way that they're doing, and they want reform. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, the police force is not broken. It's operating exactly the way it was designed to operate. It is the enforcement arm of the political class.
Oh, exactly.
It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. You're not going to get in the inside and fix that, because it's...
Well, I mean, and what socialist program doesn't want to grow? And how would you grow a socialist program like the police? Oh, you would hire more police officers. More police officers find more crime. So we've got a really bad area. We need more police officers for all this crime. So you get more. And then it gets to the point where half the damn neighborhood might as well be police officers.
Well, or your neighbors are spying on you for them.
Well, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
We've had instances of that in the past under totalitarian regimes where basically everybody becomes so afraid of the police force, be they wearing blue shirts or brown shirts, it doesn't really matter.
I made a post,
they will become
Merrick,
part of the enforcement.
I made a post a while back, Merrick, maybe about a year ago. It was like, why doesn't Obama just deputize the entire nation, since no police is ever convicted for murder, assault, or anything like that? All their actions are deemed justified. Why don't we just deputize anybody, and then the crime rate would just go to zero?
Oh, there you go. Just give everybody a shiny badge and a gun, and we will have peace on earth. I mean, that's Lou's
bam, wham.
That's Lou's shtick, right? That if you want complete peace and solitude, let's just turn the whole place into North Korea, because they've got the wall, they've got no Mexicans, everybody's armed, and they have no murder. And then you go, okay, there you go. Let's do that. Why not?
Yeah, well,
they're patriotic, they're nationalistic. It's the utopia.
They are best Korea.
They are,
if you really think about it.
Korea, best Korea.
Well, it is.
By the way, this whole thing is a joke, so if anybody's getting pissed off at me right now, no, I do not like North Korea.
I think our listeners know that
These days I never know. I have to qualify myself.
No, it's fine. But it's true though that they a country like North Korea is the epitome of what a lot of these crazy fuckers over here claim that they want. They just don't realize it because they don't see it. They look at it and go, "Oh no, that's horrible. That's the dictatorship and blah blah blah." And it's like, well, no, look what they're getting. They're getting all the things you claim you want, and you'd be willing to sacrifice more of your money and to pay I'm glad to pay my taxes for this stuff. That type of attitude, like that's what you want. That's what you want right there, and it goes right over your head because you conflate what you want with what you perceive to be good and bad because you've been told what's good and bad for years and it's been beaten into your head. And
Dave, this is what you and I talked about the other day, that this is what Jeremy is mentioning is generational institutionalism. And this is what you're fighting. And when we're banging our heads on the desk and we're asking ourselves, how come they don't see it? How come when I try to explain it, they don't get it? How come when I give them primary sources to historical events and historical documents, they still don't see it? It's like trying to explain a card trick to a chicken Why is that? It's because of this generational institutionalization that they're like that because they were brought up that way, and their parents brought them up that way, and their grandparents brought them up that way, and this is eventually how you get to North Korea. And I don't want to bring up, I don't want to invoke Godwin's law on a podcast, but you have to ask yourself, in all honesty, how do you get to that point? How do you get to that level of nationalism that can be the Maoist revolution, that can be the Third Reich revolution, that can be Benito Mussolini's vision, that can be Karl
Hegelian
Marx's socialism? Well, yeah, but it takes generations. Go ahead, Shane.
I was just going to add Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's the same thing. How do you get to that point? And it has to be a generational thing. You have to have statism as your religion to be able to support these things. And even as we look back through history on it, I got into arguments with people about the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs, and people would just literally rain down hate on me for questioning that. Was this necessary? And I had to ask him, well, how do you get to this point?
Yeah, because they don't want to feel like the bad guy.
Well, the bad guy, but it's
they didn't do it.
Well, exactly. It's not even that. It's complete, just like beyond ignorance and a stubborn willfulness to remain that way. Because even like I know exactly what you're talking about, because that happens to me all the time when that gets brought up, and yeah, the vitriol that immediately comes back to anybody who questions those things, even when you can point out and say like, Eisenhower, you big statist, you want to talk about your heroes and stuff, that guy, everybody loves Ike.
Even he said we never needed to use that terrible thing, is what he said.
Yep, absolutely. He was one of the many so-called heroes of these people that called it like beyond unnecessary and like overkill and and at that point, if somebody like that can admit that it was unnecessary, overkill, whatever you want to call it, then how do you not rightfully call that murder, what they did?
Oh, dude,
like beyond,
it was a Japanese genocide. Like, legitimately, what they did to Japan, like, they went through towns and just leveled them. And then they would just kill anybody that was coming out of them. It was bad. So,
well,
when you find out that your guys may not have been the best guys,
sure, but even the Germans
kicks in.
Yeah, even the Germans after the war, during the Reconstruction, even the German people understood their folly. And the magnitude of their mistake. Even the Japanese, you look at what the Chinese and the Japanese did to each other. Anybody can look it up, the rape of Nanking and the retribution. Look at what the Japanese did in the Philippines and in Malaysia. Brutal, but they had the common sense to understand how terrible that was, what their nationalism led them into. We seem to be too freaking stupid to even understand that.
Well, yeah,
but a bully's gonna fight.
Well, okay. I was gonna say that.
I mean, when you're the world empire, which America is, when it comes into question, it's gonna swing and flail and.
Well, that's like the power of propaganda right there. All of that dehumanization that we've been, had pounded into our heads that, say during World War II, that the Japanese were the enemy. And they even interned American citizens who were of Japanese ancestry.
Good point.
Yeah. Like, that's, I think,
and Italian, and Italian and German. People often forget. People often forget that it wasn't just the Japanese that got interned. They also got quote unquote Italian, American citizens and German American citizens. Just not as in great as number as the Japanese, but they were rounded up too.
That's true. Yep.
And now people like Mr. Sulu even want gun control.
Oh,
I think that's when the NSA was created, right? Was to spy on Germans, Japanese, and.
If it wasn't the actual NSA, it was the precursor.
That was
I think
the
so.
OSS,
well,
which
was
eventually
that
became
OSI.
No,
the OSS, and which became the FBI. Yeah.
No, I thought the OSS
the
was
Office of Secret Services.
The Office of Strategic Services, which was under the guise of Prescott Bush.
Yeah, but
was,
right.
That wasn't the FBI. That was the precursor to the CIA, wasn't it?
Correct. That was the precursor to the CIA, which the CIA is the Bush family business.
Absolutely, it absolutely
Man, I'm just full of incorrect information tonight. I don't know why.
Hey, man, we can pick up the slack. It's okay.
Right.
You're here for the smooth silkiness of your voice, anyway, brother.
Okay, thank you.
But no, Shane, you're absolutely right. That's an excellent point. That when people want to talk about the Bushes and be mad at George Bush was a horrible president. Most people have pretty much forgotten his father at this point because he wasn't around long enough. All the hatred is directed at little Georgie boy, and would have been at Jeb if he had actually gotten anywhere in this presidential election. But yeah, I mean, the Daddy Bush was what? He was the CIA director for at least 10 years, wasn't he? Before he got into politics.
I think there was one point when he was first elected vice president where he was still director of the CIA at the same time.
Oh, really? I didn't remember that. Yeah. But yeah, he was. And yeah, like you said, what was that? Prescott was his great-grandfather, or was just his grandfather?
Yeah, and Prescott's dad was in charge of basically all the steel companies at the time, and he was also the war planning iron commissioner or steel commissioner. So he chose what companies got what steel contracts with the federal government and all the other governments to supply steel for World War I and World War II and all that. So the Bush family's in there deep, man.
Yeah,
that's a nice touch.
Yeah, and that so I mean, people want to hate on the Bushes, hate on them for the right reasons, not for just the superficial stuff that you think because this isn't even the stuff like this is not conspiracy theory anymore. You can go look this stuff up. This is where these people were. This is what happened while they were in these positions. You could try to chalk it up to coincidence, but when it keeps happening over and over and over again, it really, that's why, and again, it goes back to what you were saying, Merrick, about the craziness of the fact that there's such a rabid nationalism here that people don't see that when it's gone horribly wrong everywhere else, there's a reason for it. It's not because it wasn't them, it's what they were doing. Because it happened to so many different people in so many different places at so many different times. So it can't be the people when it happens that often. It could
possibly be the idea.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the idea.
Your ideas are broken.
Exactly. And I mean, there was I think we've mentioned this. I might have mentioned this a couple of shows ago, but there was the essay I stumbled across recently. Apparently, I think Larkin Rose must have posted it on his Facebook page and claiming that he had never known this existed, and apparently a lot of other people, including myself, didn't either. There was an essay by Tolstoy called on patriotism and government, where he doesn't even separate patriotism from nationalism. He just pretty much treats them the same and destroys the entire notion of it. And it was a magnificent essay.
They are the same thing.
I'm
gonna have to look that up.
I'll put it in the show notes.
You can be a patriot of some other thing, but I mean, I think Tolstoy, when he says patriotism, he meant talking about state patriotism.
He would. I based on my reading of it, I read it a couple of times after I found it that day, and it to me, because when he was writing it and everything, it seems what he's describing is what, in modern parlance, most people would equate to nationalism. Because there can be, there's that one quote from Mark Twain, about the patriot, where he's talking about, in the beginning of change, the patriot is a scarce man, he's hated and scorned and yada yada yada. But that can be. Just because the word patriots in there doesn't mean it necessarily means the patriots of today who think they're patriots. That quote alone can be directed to anybody who wants a free society or anything for that matter. So there's people get hung up on the words, but I think they can be used. Nationalism, patriotism can pretty much be used interchangeably. I think patriotism, at least the way it's portrayed here in the good old USSA, is meant to make it seem so much different than nationalism, because if people start,
I think you're right.
Yeah, because if people start recognizing nationalism, they may start to get the hint that, wait a minute, weren't there other people that were nationalists throughout history that were bad?
Yeah, and we actually did an entire show on that a couple of months ago, where we tried to do the differentiation between, as you said, the modern parlance between patriotism and nationalism, but that vernacular has changed over time. And that's why I typically call this hawkishness jingoism, because that is one that kind of still rings true from the French Revolution up until today. It's still the same thing.
Yeah, I would. That's actually a good point. Maybe I should start using that one more often. Makes more sense.
Hawkish jingoism.
Hawkish
jingoism is real.
There's a bumper sticker for you. Say no to hawkish jingoism.
I think Trump is going to announce his VP this weekend. You guys want to just guess in the dark who you think it's going to be?
I thought he already did.
I already know who it is.
Yeah, he already did that. He announced. I thought.
No, he hasn't. He's
the governor of Indiana, Mike Pence.
Right.
No, he hasn't. That was false. He even just tweeted, "It's not Mike Pence. I have announced nothing."
Well, thank God, because Mike Pence is a super neocon.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Newt Gingrich.
So, all right. So let's see if any of us can guess and see who it is.
I'm just going to randomly pick a name, because I honestly don't pay attention to politics enough to even know who is even considered, other than because I've heard Gingrich's name floated about, and I just happened to hear that story that apparently was false about Mike Pence. Other than that, I have no idea who's actually considered, other than the people that they threw up there as candidates.
We have Michael Flynn, Rand Paul, Chris Christie, Newt Gingrich. And I can't remember anybody else.
Well, exactly.
My guess would be way off of that. I was going to say Condoleezza Rice.
Okay, so Merrick's going Condoleezza Rice. Shane's going who?
Well, out of those choices, I would have thought either Gingrich or Christie, but he might as well choose Hillary at this point, because what difference does it make?
Yeah, you're right.
That's
Shane gave the answer I was looking for.
I like Shane.
Well, yeah.
For the record, I'm going to see if I can call this like a 3-pointer or whatever. I think it's going to be Michael Flynn. He's
that would definitely
retired
be a 3-point.
lieutenant general.
I don't even know who he is.
He is He's the retired general that was in charge of homeland surveillance, essentially, and they kicked him out because Obama kicked him out, made him forced to retire because he was, saying we need to do something about Muslims, and Obama was like, "You're not PC, get the hell out of here." And so that's gonna really keep Trump's narrative, and I think Trump has to pick an assassin-proof VP. He has to pick somebody that if they kill him, it's gonna be worse.
Okay, by that definition, why wouldn't it be Alan West?
I think Rand Paul would be the most surefire assassin-proof VP.
Well, you might be right about that.
Maybe Gary Johnson. Let's go full tilt libtard.
No, it won't.
No. Well, I don't know, because Rand Paul's been quiet for like a few months. He's done nothing on TV or anything.
He's done nothing.
Dave has a good point, because if he were to choose Rand Paul, that could give him the little bump that he needs to stay ahead of Hillary.
And think about it. He picks Rand Paul. Rand Paul fills in a lot of his gaps, especially with conservatives. And
it might get the Johnson crowd to come over to the Trump side.
Oh, and it'll crush the Johnson crowd. Crush them. Mm-hmm. Why the hell? Yeah, done.
Well, I don't know. I thought Johnson had something good going on because, with his pick of Weld, what's to lose, right? Blink. Anyone? Bueller?
Yeah.
Anyone?
But the LP was screwed anyways, because who are you going to get? Austin Peterson?
Well, I don't.
He wasn't their number 2 pick.
Oh, yeah. I would have rather had Darrell W. Perry just for the sake of the debates. Would have been so much better.
If Perry was on with Trump and Hillary, I would probably That would probably be the most entertaining thing you could possibly see on TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I would agree.
We've got to have Daryl Perry on this show.
He's a smart guy,
Jeremy,
too.
Oh yeah, I
you
listen to
should
Free
get
Talk
him on.
Live sometimes, and yeah, I love Daryl W. Perry.
Yeah, well, that would never be allowed to happen. They don't want anybody shown nationally who can actually hold a conversation and articulate not just a message but principles, and can show that he lives by these principles, unlike these people that are just campaign slogans and sound bites, and they don't have any
populists.
They don't have exactly. They go with the they go with the flow. They don't actually have any set principles other than the ones that are just horribly
I
wrong.
left out Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions was the other one considered. Yeah.
Oh.
Which that would be another
Alabama.
good pick because
Well, see,
the number one concern for everyone in this election so far has been, because the media has kind of let this narrative run wild, is immigration. And Jeff Sessions has always been anti-immigration. He basically was one of the major supporters of a bill that passed in Alabama that made a lot of illegal aliens leave. And
That's
so I
true.
can imagine him picking Jeff Sessions just for that, just to say, hey, I'm not messing around about this immigration thing. But this is a big sideshow, the whole thing. I just kind of wanted to get your guys' guess on the thing, just to see if, like a three-pointer, a blind three-pointer, we could hit one in the dark.
I think your Rand Paul idea might be a three-pointer, but I'm going to see if I can take a half-court shot and just say McAfee. Imagine Trump McAfee ticket. He'd be assassin-proof.
That guy has more baggage than Delta Airlines.
Yeah. He's he's a great individual, but
he is.
We'll see.
He's my favorite government thug outside of a couple of other people, but for somebody actually looking for that position of power, he basically said, "Yeah, I don't even want it."
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, you're right. I don't think the right would actually go for.
Well, see that's the other thing. I mean, I think you guys are talking about two different things here, because who's the assassination-proof VP candidate, I think, is completely separate from who could actually get him to quote unquote win with the idiot voters.
He has to pick someone that has the at least appearance of being anti-establishment. If he picks Gingrich or Pence or Christie, that's going to really hurt him. Really hurt him.
Christie's not the establishment issue. It's everybody hates Christie. Even most of the people even most of the people in Jersey, except they're too dumb to. I mean, beyond.
It's getting real bad over here.
It's horrible, but and the Rand Paul thing that would never fly. So that although I guess if he's actually trying to win and get votes, maybe enough people would be.
Look at it from Rand's perspective. If Trump comes in and goes, Hey, Rand Paul, you want to be my vice president? He's going to be like, do it. Because if Trump gets killed, then Rand Paul doesn't even have to run for election. Bam,
no, but like I said, I think those are two separate issues. But assassination-proof, I think Paul would actually fit that bill too, because most people would not want to see somebody who they perceive to be a libertarian, even though he's not in charge.
No, he's a strict constitutionalist. That's all he is.
He's not even a strict constitutionalist.
I don't even know how strict about it.
Exactly. So again, I think the line about the sideshow is the better point, Dave, because it doesn't matter who. I mean, I still think it's pretty much they're going to give it to Hillary at this point anyway. It doesn't really matter. I don't think there's.
Don't know.
Well, I don't know.
It's going to be hard to believe, though. I mean,
you got to think about it from the establishment's point of view, right? Wouldn't you rather just let Trump,
it doesn't matter,
a supposed outsider, get in and then collapse the system on him? That way you can blame everything on him.
But they're not going to collapse the system. They're not ready to do that yet. If they were going to do it, they would have done it by now. No, the reason the system continues is because they're dragging it out as long as they possibly can. That's what empires do. They cling on to power as long as they possibly can, so that people in power can get as much, steal as many resources as possible before the jig is up. That's basically what it comes down to. So they don't want to see the system crash. That's why, if they wanted to
they want it to go on in perpetuity.
Exactly. If they wanted to see the system crash, the Fed wouldn't have done QE 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million, whatever the hell it's up to now.
No, it just stopped.
If they didn't want this to perpetuate, it wouldn't. And they want it to perpetuate, and they don't really even have to do anything, because most of this is horizontal enforcement from the people out there that just do not have any clue what they're actually doing to their neighbors by demanding whatever it is that they're demanding, whoever they are, whatever they supposedly stand for, whatever team they claim to play for, whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. They all want bad things to happen to their neighbors and friends and family members if they don't agree with what they agree with. And
yeah, well, that's what that wildly unpopular position that Hoppe took on when he made that argument that a monarchy is better than a democracy. And everybody lost their minds on that. But he said at least at that point you have a ruling class that has the best interest of the legacy of their little fiefdom, their nation, in mind. Whereas when you have a democracy or this oligarchy, you just have people who are trying to rape, pillage, and plunder for the duration of the time that they have and then somebody else will beat them out and take it over, and they're going to rape and pillage and plunder it. And they're not trying to leave a legacy. And I have a lot of issues with Hoppe, and I'm not agree with that, but it is something, if you're looking at what's going on, it is something worth consideration. That, yeah, these people are not really looking out for your interests because it's not in their interest to do so. Why would you even think that they would?
Well, sure.
No, they're worried about themselves.
Right. That wouldn't be the only faulty Hoppe argument that I've heard of.
No, it's not, but it is just something to think about. Just
I don't think
about over your cup of coffee in the morning.
Well, I don't. Well, I was gonna. I don't know. I don't think that's a faulty one. I think that's one of his good ones.
Can I ask a question of understanding what we've talked about tonight and seeing that everything, in a lot of ways, is coming to a head? Look at the cops and the shootings on both sides, and the public fallout from that. And the banking system, look at what's going on with China and what's coming down the pike with the election and the civil strife and the tension that's in the air and this false racism that we have. What do you have, if you could pick one point of what is a peaceful resolution, a potential peaceful solution to this? If you were king for a day, what would it be?
If I were king for a day, it wouldn't work.
Well, not for a day, probably. But I would try to, free the market, maybe get some private security going in these powder keg areas like Dallas and so forth.
I would take a real big baby step right now in people's minds. Holy shit! Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Dave's about to get.
Holy moly!
Dave's about to get wiped out.
Sorry, the lightning is out of control over here. Yeah. I'm getting harped right now, boys.
All right. Well, Dave, why don't you finish saying what you're saying, and then you can cut out, and we'll finish up. All right.
Baby step would be to make police start working exactly like the fire department. That I think would be the biggest step for peace that could happen right now.
Yeah, I think to get a Band-Aid on the situation, quickest thing. And the drug war.
That might do more than we would.
Oh no,
we would imagine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It would probably do it. It would probably do a ton, but
it'd be a great step. Yeah.
Yeah, just and the ridiculous federal ban on all this crap, especially considering most of the stuff that they really crack down on, besides I guess meth, all the other stuff actually has medicinal benefits. Cocaine, heroin, opium, they all actually have, MDMA, psilocybin, cannabis. So, just end that ridiculousness. And right there, things get so much better because so many less people are getting harassed, threatened, kidnapped, caged, and or shot for doing stuff to try to make themselves feel better. But
then we wouldn't have the largest prison population in the world.
Exactly.
For non-violent criminals.
Yep. Yeah,
But I agree with you. If I could pick two, one would be in the drug war because it does solve a lot of problems that people don't even associate with drugs. And two is I would completely abolish the standing army because it's not necessary.
Oh, it's absolutely not. Well,
the last time the United States as a sovereign nation was invaded was hang on, let me think. There was no but no yeah, never.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and we're 0-2 with Canada, and we're also 0-1 with Afghanistan. So having a standing army that's 10 times bigger than all of the next 10 nations combined apparently isn't helping that much either. And it frees up a lot of money. So yeah, we could do that. And repeal the 16th Amendment. Oh, and no, sorry.
Yeah. Well. Now you're just taking it too far, Merrick.
Well, if you could do all that in one day, then I'd say more power to you. But yeah, like you said about ending the drug war, just cannabis alone can replace so many other industries, or at least contribute into the medicinal industry and all kinds of like textiles. There's so many uses for it.
Well, sure,
absolutely. It's all positive, no negative.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the worst negative usually about cannabis, outside from the danger that does exist because it's placed in a black market for the most part because of ridiculous government regulations, which necessarily
heartburn.
Well, no. Well, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, eating really crappy food. Not exactly the healthiest thing, especially if you smoke a lot.
I think heartburn is the worst thing I've ever encountered.
So, it's that would go a long way. But I mean that's one thing that just when you talk about
so the Cheetos market is going to plummet. All right, but that's a minor side of it.
Yeah, I think we, the royal we, will get over that. So it's and of course those things. Like I was, like we were talking about before about the empires clinging to power and not wanting to relinquish what they have and just keep draining it. That's why these things stuff like that, like the drug war, will go on for as long as it possibly can, because there is so much money and just resources in general that are raped from people that all go into the pockets of these psychopaths and sociopaths and would-be tyrants, and they just get to make money hand over fist. They have all their friends, whether it's in the lobbying districts or whether it's in the the corporations that they have fascistic ties with, where they are just pumping their money these funds directly into their friends and business associates. So it's not even really disguised anymore. It's just almost accepted, sadly, and people just go, well, we got to get money out of politics. Well, you live in it's beyond quasi-fascist at this point. You essentially live in a fascist state. You can't get money out of politics. You can't, that's the problem. You need to separate those two entities. You need to separate. I mean, getting rid of the state is the ideal, but just or the government, the state's the belief. If you get rid of that, then you don't really need anything else. But getting rid of the government's the ideal, but just separating the two for now. Talking about baby steps, what Dave was talking about before he finally got droned, and hopefully his okay. The weather sounded really rough down there, but. What's that?
That reminds me of a quote that I saw just today on Facebook that said something like, "I used to think that we had to get money out of politics, but now I think we just need to get politics out of money."
Yeah.
Right.
exactly. So
yeah, just get your politics out of my money.
Yeah, exactly.
Your money, just get them out of mine.
Yeah, you want to play
off
with
my lawn.
Get off my lawn. Exactly.
I was gonna make a Pokemon joke.
Oh God.
It's like if it's not the cops showing up, it's these damn kids in their Pokemon game.
Yeah, and
stay off my lawn.
If it was just kids, it wouldn't be so bad. There's adults running around, I know, doing this stuff, and not with their children. So, but anyway, I was gonna
play it, but then I realized that I don't live in my mom's basement, and I've actually seen a vagina before, so I was precluded from being able to do it. And my son's going to hear this, and he's going to kill me because he loves it.
Well, truth hurts sometimes. So on that note, I think we should get wrapping up. Both Merrick and Shane, thank you guys very much. As always, it's been great talking to both of you. Like I said earlier, this is our second experience with Fiend Phone. Obviously, Dave has a lot of issues we need to work out, but let's not blame that on Fiend Phone. We're going to blame that on Dave. But then again, I blame pretty much everything on Dave.
Yeah.
But that's what he's there for.
So do I. It's fun. Yeah, it's not a problem. But no, it's always an honor and a pleasure to come on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I want to thank you for having me on again. And it's been a real pleasure to talk with Merrick for the first time. That was a real delight.
Same to you, Shane. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks.
Hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah.
I hope so, too.
For anybody who hasn't listened to Merrick and Jonathan on the RadicaLogic Podcast, I highly suggest you check them out. They put stuff out sporadically at this point, but I'm not going to bust their balls too hard because I know they both got a lot of shit going on in your life, and it's always quality. I mean, to me, I listen to a lot of podcasts that don't come out all the time, like my history ones that, Prof. CJ's been pretty good about putting stuff out regularly, but, Daniele Bellelli puts stuff out every, 2 months or so? Yeah. Dan Carlin puts stuff out every 4 months or so. I don't care. It's because it's good. It's worth it. That's all I care about.
It's good quality.
Exactly.
And that's what we're shooting for is quality over quantity.
Well, exactly.
And if I'm not ready to do something and put it out at 100%, we're going to wait.
You guys do a quality podcast, and that's why I'm an avid fan, and I get psyched whenever you send me a message and tell me you have something new for me to put out on our RSS feed for our fans to also enjoy, hopefully. But you guys, like I said, I'm a big fan of what you guys do, and I don't care how often you put it out. It's always worth it to me. So, like I said,
thank you. I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, no problem, man. So for anybody who hasn't, like I said, you can find their shows. They're always on our RSS feed at seedsofliberty.com. Or you guys have what? Dipsy? Is it still on dipsydiver.com? Is that where you're?
It's on Dipsy Diver. Yeah, DIPSY, dipsydiver.com. It's also on RadicaLogicPodcast.com.
Oh, okay, great. So that's
and iTunes and Stitcher.
Yep. So that will. Yeah, so go check him out. And Shane, if you want to plug any of your sites, your Facebook pages before we go.
Yeah, I've been adminning about a dozen Facebook pages lately, but the ones I've been posting on the most, I think, have been Anarcho-Consciousness and the Pullout Method. But I'm also the newest admin at Psychologic Anarchist, and you should check them out as well.
Oh, nice. Sterling's page?
Yeah. I'm really excited to be on board of that crew.
Yeah, very cool. Sterling, a good friend of the show, Sterling Lujan. You can often catch him on Dave's other show, The Downfall with Jared and Dave. He hops on a lot with them. He's doing a lot of great work. So yeah, definitely check out them and all of Shane's stuff. I'll put a bunch of stuff in the notes. So again, gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. I'm glad you're both here. I'm glad we got to finish without Dave. So much more peaceful without him. All of his popping and I'm gonna get yelled at for audio, and it's all Dave's fault. There, I said it. Anyway, so this has been the Seeds of Liberty podcast. All of our information can be found at theseedsofliberty.com, and we will check you next time. Peace.
Later.
Or
worms.
Worm.
Enemies is just enables you to see it too. Menial. Recently reading into the thesis here, mirroring the people who completely fail to see it though. Seeing
projecting their own self-hatred onto us.
Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to bipcot.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.